So today the topic is go-to-market in for sales, go-to-market strategy for business to business. My name is Nicolaj Højer Nielsen, and I'm mainly a business angel, and I work together with PreSeed Ventures on facilitating this startup school. And I do that because I think that there's so much I could have learned when in my first startups if I knew some of these areas that we touched. So when we decide these areas, areas you think that we should have known when we start our first companies. And B2B is for sure one of them, because many of us, we know business from consumer, because we consumers ourselves. We know how we think and act. But most of us, especially when we start our first company, we don't know that much about B2B. So what we're doing today is touch about that, and also in understanding that B2B is very different. So we have one speaker that is Max from Mikkel, who will talk about how is it to sell in the small and mid-sized segment. So not selling to the mass or the Novos, whatever, but selling to the 20, 40, 50 big companies. That is still different from consumer, but it's also very different from what Mikkel will talk about from Omnio, but talk about how do you make partnerships with some of the biggest companies in the world. So the sales and marketing tactics that you will have to do is extremely different. So the agenda is basically, I'll do a very brief introduction to the topic after this. Max on stage, break with snacks and drinks, Mikkel, and then we have the Q&A session. And we try to take most of the Q&A at one session. So we have a dedicated Q&A session called Pigeonhole. So you go into that URL there, and you can then enter your questions, and then we'll take the questions at a combined Q&A session, quick wrap-up, and then a final beer. So, with that being said, it's really annoying to click on this one. What is go-to-market strategy? In my simple way, it consists of at least 4 elements. One is, of course, which need are you solving with which products? Okay, relatively simple, you can say, but then the same product can be utilized in many, many different segments. So we talk about B2B, B2C, we talk about different aspects of B2B, and of course, even when you say, I go for SME segment in B2B, that is still very different industries. Max will talk about that. Then about how we bring this to the market, direct versus indirect, and how do we create the sales and marketing awareness funnel. I'm doing that with direct sales people, I'm doing that with social media, etc. Our main focus today is this area up here with B2B. And it is just very different. And I think the best way to utilize or illustrate that would be by saying we would like to sell IT. Can you imagine the sales process for you deciding on buying a new phone or laptop versus selling the same to one of these companies here? Even if it's not a big one. What are you concerned about? Most likely not the same features that this mid-sized company is concerned about. And my best example is what happens when this computer breaks down and you're a consumer, you hand it in, and you are apparently okay with that it takes 1 or 2 weeks before you get it back. Guess what? If you have to sell computers in the B2B segment, it's a different criteria because they want their employees to be productive. So service agreements and stuff like that. So the main thing is B2B needs are very different, so your product also will be different. I think the first thing is, oh my God, who's in charge? I'm a part-time lecturer at Copenhagen Business School, so sometimes some of these startups ask me, Nicolaj, who should I contact at CBS who can decide regarding this new type of software? I have no clue. Is it the IT department? Maybe. Is it a purchasing department? Maybe. Is it legal? I have no clue. So one of the key things in B2B is identifying who are the stakeholders internally and typically manage a lot of them. Because you have a user, you have a purchaser, you have a no-sayer, all these things. Right? So the first thing is the decision process are very different. That's bad. What's good? The good is that one customer is worth a lot. Right? So imagine you are in the catering business here, right? Or online groceries, you can say. What's the lifetime value of having one of you as a menu.com customer? I guess a few thousand kroner. What's the value of securing the canteen of Article 1? Much, much higher. So what we have is some sales and marketing processes that are much more complex and long, but the potential value of each customer is much higher, meaning that you can afford to do other kinds of stuff, right? If I want you as customer for selling an ad, you know, the lifetime value of you is a few €100 maybe. So what can I do? I can't have a salesperson to call you. No, most likely I'll depend on some viral thing, freemium, whatever, because I can't do that much pay. Basically what I illustrate here. But B2B is very different, right? So what's the best example of Denmark? The biggest beast in Denmark, Novo Nordisk. I'm also involved in a fantastic pharmaceutical company here, and we're 8-10 people, right? So imagine selling IT to Novo Nordisk versus us. Imagine selling whatever to us versus Novo Nordisk. So that's why we decided to have these two guest speakers today, because they will give two very different perspectives of how is it to sell to SME, how is it to sell to some really big companies. What are the differences between these two? The first thing is, what are you selling, right? Are you selling toilet paper or are you selling ERP system? Guess what? The sales and marketing process for toilet paper is maybe relatively simple, maybe almost as simple as business to consumer. Versus selling ERP system, good luck, right? You know, can you imagine going to a company, I don't know how they do it, please change your ERP system. You know, very complex. So you basically have that as one. So what you're having is, am I chasing elephants, meaning a few big customers that are buying a lot, or am I chasing mice, meaning I need a lot of customers that will have average, relatively small value. I'm not saying what's the best. You can make a big company, and this is a German VC called Christoph Jans, who basically said, well, how do you build a $100 million business? You know, have a few elephants and a lot of the mice or the bees. So if we keep that analogy, we can say, what are the broad simplification here? So if I chase mice, and mice could be one of you small startups that have some kind of payroll software where you pay the software maybe a few, maybe 10, 20 euro a month. That means that the value of your, as a customer, is very small. It also typically means that I'm selling to small companies or at least a few decision makers. So the difference between that and consumer marketing is not that big. Right? It's different, yes, but it's not that big. So what I was doing when I sold to elephants, completely different game, right? Because here you have these huge order sums. Imagine that I want to have Novo Nordisk to change their ERP system. What is the lifetime value of that? Most likely hundreds of millions of kroner, maybe in dollars. So what do? Well, I can't really put a Facebook ad in and say, please change right now. 10% discount if you buy now. Right? So most likely the sales and marketing process is extremely different, and that's okay. It's okay having a team of 4 people to chase people in Novo Nordisk to make them change the ERP system because we're chasing 100 million euros. And that would basically be the topic of today, these two things. Then there's another variable I really briefly have to talk about, that is, how do we get a first elephant? You can say there are 2 ways to do it. Either you believe that I have one elephant that will give me more. So that would be you chasing big companies from the beginning, and that first a few reference customers will enable you to get more. Right? So I need maybe not, I'll go for Lundbeck, and after Lundbeck, I'll go for Novo Nordisk. Right? So maybe a slightly smaller elephant, but still an elephant.
So what's the first product chasing elephant from the beginning? That is that these companies most likely are needing a lot of things you don't have. So the first thing that happens when you go into a big company is who have bought it before, right? They also have extreme demands regarding specifications. So if anyone you want to sell software or hardware to a big elephant global company, so what's your service level agreement you have in Saudi Arabia? Can you be on site within 4 hours? And then you go to Momondo and check out that it takes slightly longer to be there, and you say no. So one of the problems here is that it takes, do you have what it takes? And it takes 2 years. So one of my own cases is my friend Dan. He created Recon Instruments, who was a heads-up display for ski goggles. Their customers would be the Oakleys and the Smiths. Guess what? Was the first customer Oakley? No. They actually met with Oakley, and then how long time would it take Oakley to sign? 3 years, right? What did they did in meantime? They did another strategy. And that other strategy is, you can say, start with a small one and go for the elephants later. Because then you can build the complete product. You can build also the brand and the trust. You have the reference customers, and you can validate the market and say, dear big customer, do that. Because big elephants or big organizations are in general risk averse. My best example with that is a company I co-founded, Peneo, who do digital signature solutions. So you'll see big names now on the website called Deloitte, and for instance. Another thing, I took this from the website because I didn't dare just to put in the brand. Why? Because there are rules regarding that. So I just took it from the public website. They have Deloitte now. Was Deloitte the first customer? Most likely not. Fantastic strategy, right? We go for the small and then the big ones. What's the flip side of that? That is that they have different demands. So if you go for something that satisfies the small and medium ones, most likely they have other demands than the big ones. So right now, this is actually a discussion point in a company I invested in, meaning VR. PreSeed also invested in there, who do an VR collaboration platform. They have interest from big ones and small ones. They think maybe long-term it's really the big ones. We can go for the small ones now, but it doesn't solve the long-term thing of the big ones actually have other requirements. That is integration to the systems, etc., etc., etc. So the question is, are we shooting ourselves sort of in the foot by building something that doesn't satisfy the elephant's needs if we believe we should go for the elephants? Finally, you're building resources and you're learning. Not only the product, but also in the organization. So imagine 2 different segments, right? Either we're chasing the mice or we're chasing the elephants. And we still only talk about B2B. So how do you get the mice to buy? Most likely something about some marketing, content marketing, sign up for a demo, whatever, and then what? Then you have a screaming sales guy in the phone say, now you buy. You know, now you get the 8% discount, you get a little bit of more if you buy now. Honestly, that is how sales and marketing works from many SMEs. You typically don't send out the person because you can't afford having a physical meeting. The elephants is more like wine and dine and building relationship. So imagine if you start with chasing all the small ones and you build an organization with that, and then you want transferred to this one. This can end bad. Sometimes you have to start with the big ones, and that's a problem. So I'm the co-founder of Sepure, who do some really, really nerdy encryption technology that is honestly only relevant for the really big guys. The problem is, how do you get that market validation when your sales cycle for these big ones are 2 or 3 years, and they all want reference customers? If I have the silver bullet for that, I'll be extremely rich. In Sepure, we're trying. They built the first partnership with SBI. SBI is quite interesting because it actually stands for SoftBank. So it's an interesting investor and partner. But it's not easy, right? Because then you end up partnership with them, but it takes them 2 years to go to the market. So in the meantime, you're trying to get new customers. And yes, we have a partnership, but we're not live. So starting with big elephants from the beginning is really hard. With this introduction, I want you to understand, of course, B2B is very different from B2C. That B2B have very different segments, the mice and elephants, different needs, different sales and marketing tactics. And one of them is, should we start small and go big later on? I'll do the wrap up really fast. I actually do without slides. So what it'll be is that the main thing today is understanding how business to business is different. And you already heard about it from both Max and from Mikkel about, oh my God, it's really different selling that than convincing one of you to try the new app. That's one thing. What we also discussed is, yeah, but B2B is really wide. That is about selling to one of these small accounting companies, or selling to Deloitte, or selling to another SME and selling to one of the big ones. So that's why we had these two perspectives. And if I take this perspective of Max selling to the SMEs, that has to be very process oriented, right? Because I think, to quote you, I think you're talking to 1,000 companies a day. Was it something like that? Yeah, 1,000 companies a day who each need to go through this funnel, and you have to manage cost and material and different types of people, and no one likes to do this cold calling, so it's these part-time workers who go to a demo or whatever, and all that has to be done for relatively low cost because the lifetime value is relatively small. I think that's one key, is really understanding that, understanding also the tech you use to do that. My other thing here was, okay, so what did we learn from Mikkel? We learned that having these big companies as customers takes time. And the biggest risk here is that while these are so slow, I like the analogy of the feet and the elephants, all that, and also that they could actually squeeze you. And how do you survive that and get this big beast with, I think it was 15 different stakeholders to say yes to this, about how it's important to getting in. And the only way it was getting in was these contacts, getting in with recommendation, get all people on board, and then again it ended as a top decision. Really different. And again, some of us, we stand in that situation where we have to choose between SME or big companies. Other of us only have products that are suitable for big companies. But nevertheless, you should really understand how different it is. And one of the key things in the end was also, what kind of people do you need? So I'm guessing that the ideal sales manager or salesperson for Max is very different from the ideal salesperson or sales manager or even co-founder for Mikkel, because it's very different task and very different mentality, right? So with these words, I have one slide, that is that we'll be back in 2020. And if you can't wait, we have the open door event with, I think, still a few slides left. That is November 26th. Remember, it's not a paid session. It's basically a feedback session where some of the investment managers from PreSeed and myself, we're giving feedback to some startups. So with these words, thanks a lot for Material One, and thanks for especially for Mikkel and Max for coming here, and have a great Christmas.